One question I get asked a lot is, how do I start cardistry? Cardistry is a beautiful art form that incorporates like sort of juggling and playing cards. Looks really magical, but it isn't magic. Let's not get into that right now. But it's amazing. I'm in love with cardistry. Now, I'm not the best cardist in the world. As a magician, I do use cards a lot, and I found a massive interest for cardistry and started learning, and I'm still learning all the time. Really love it. I really love the community. And I have some tips today that may help you start your journey into cardistry. All right, so the first tip in cardistry, and probably the most important, to have fun. This is something that's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be grueling. It's not supposed to be painstaking. If you're not having fun with it, do something else. Do kendama or yo-yo or play pogs. I realize that most of you don't know what pogs are. But regardless, move on to something else and come back to it later. You should never be frustrated when doing cardistry, or else you're just not gonna have fun learning it. It is very difficult, but it's up to you to take the time, the right time, to learn it. I'd say to start off, learn the basic grips. So the basic grips are just your dealer's grip, get comfortable with a deck in your hand, straddle grip. And I actually have these exercises where I hold a deck while I'm on the computer, and I just kind of like flip it upside down and hold it in different angles between different fingers, and that develops a lot of the dexterity and finger muscles that I have, which apply to cardistry. Another great tip is to do finger exercises, or you can just come up with your own. There are a few out there. I know a lot of people doing finger tutting. You can probably look up finger tutting tutorials, and that'll help develop, I'm sure, the dexterity. Is it necessary? No, but is it fun? It could be. Then move on to the basic cuts. So you want to learn a lot of the basic one-handed cuts, the easier stuff like Charlier, maybe Revolution cut. All these one-handed cuts will help you develop your comfort zone with the deck of cards, and eventually you'll be able to combo those single swing cuts and that type of thing with other cuts to make a crazy looking flourish. A lot of people say trainers are a great way to practice cardistry. I, for one, don't use trainers all the time, but I do see the value in them. Trainers are little pieces of plastic that allow you to do cardistry and concentrate on multiple packets without having 52 cards slipping and sliding around. Also, they're pretty durable, so you can just drop them in your pocket. You don't need a tuck case for them. You can drop them on the floor. It doesn't really matter, and it's just kind of its own thing. It doesn't have anything to do with cards, so you'll rarely get that associated with magic. One thing that I've learned, and I learned this really quickly, is do not practice over a hard surface or a dirty surface. Go ahead and practice on a soft surface. So while you're watching TV or in the bed, anything over a couch or a carpet or this type of thing, you can really go ahead and experiment and try some riskier moves that you wouldn't normally do if you were standing. Cardistry can seem very discouraging as well. There are thousands of videos online show you all these incredible combinations and beautiful flourishes, and then when you have the cards in your hand, you seem useless. You seem like someone who can't handle a deck, and that can be discouraging. But just know that not every cardist can do everything. There are thousands of moves out there learned and new ones for you to discover. So you know what? Start somewhere where you wouldn't normally start. Get outside of your comfort zone. Don't always do what's comfortable, because you'll never develop anything. And that goes for just creating anything in life. You have to sort of step outside the box, think outside the box, but experiment, really try. It's fine if your hands aren't doing what your mind wants it to. As long as you get the basic concept and theory of what it is you're trying to create, you'll eventually come up with something new and possibly something really cool. A few tips from my friends, the Buck twins, who know a thing or two about cardistry, but they say just start from anywhere. Learn the basics if you like, but you don't have to. Just start from anywhere. Just have fun. Try anything you like. Have no expectations. When you have no expectations, you can just start cutting cards and moving them around, and eventually you'll inspire yourself because you'll come up with something that maybe hasn't been done yet, or something that you're actually really good at. And Dan and Dave even say that most of their creations came from happy accidents. So really experimenting, playing around with new things, new grips, new ways of holding cards. They also say learn what appeals to you. You'll eventually, from doing it hours and hours and hours on end, develop your own creative style, and from there it'll be a lot easier to recreate or to emulate a lot of the cardistry cuts that you guys see. I would say as well, practice with both a new deck and a used deck. And the reason for this is that a new deck can be very, very slippery. It can be challenging, which isn't a bad thing. It'll actually help you in the long run if you continue to use a new deck of cards. But if you use a used deck of cards, the cards tend to stick together more, so you can actually practice a lot of cuts, a lot of combos that you could normally not do as easily with a new deck. So go ahead and use a deck. Don't even use a tuck case. Sometimes I carry a deck with me and I just slip it in my pocket because I know that that deck is solely for cardistry and I don't really care about the condition of the card. Obviously, fanning the cards and that type of thing is going to be a lot more difficult with a used and old beat up deck. But if you're just practicing combos and packet cuts, I think old decks are the way to go. One of the biggest complaints that I hear from a lot of people on the comments or in my DMs is my hands are too small. I got tiny little hands and I can't do cardistry. And I'm gonna tell you a funny anecdote. I used to think my hands were too small for cardistry. And I know how crazy that sounds because I've got big mitts, I've got big hands, I can palm a deck laterally basically. And I thought personally that my hands were too small because I was watching a lot of these cardists who had big hands and I just couldn't understand why I couldn't do what they were doing and why I couldn't do it so easy. Why is what they're doing look so easy compared to what I'm doing with my hands? And the answer isn't the size of your hands. Yes, you will be a little bit more restricted when it comes to certain cuts, but there are things that you'll be able to do just as well as anybody else with the largest hands in the world as long as you practice, because it's not so much a question of the size of your hands, but the dexterity and the muscle memory and the buildup of those muscles that you've never before worked out on. So combine that with the training exercises and that type of thing and just get comfortable with a deck of cards, and eventually your hands will remember what a deck of cards feels like and you'll just go into things a lot easier. And that just comes with time. So don't get discouraged if you have small hands. And the last tip, and probably not the most surprising, is practice. Practice, 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 practice. Drop cards, practice with your credit card, your debit card, your phone, smaller deck, a larger deck, it doesn't even matter. As long as you keep practicing and fidgeting, that muscle memory will eventually set in and you're gonna start having way more fun with playing cards. Anybody who knows me in my personal life knows that when I started my journey in cardistry, I was swearing all the time. I'd find cards under the couch, behind my bed, like still to this day. But the idea was I really, really wanted to be good at cardistry because I really wanted it to start being a lot more fun than it was at the time. Because at the time it might have been a little bit more frustrating than I liked. I stuck through it, and when it did get frustrating, I moved on to something else. I'd come back to it. And the mind has an incredible ability to practice when you're not actually handling stuff. It's a weird ability, but it actually works. Just thinking about cardistry, thinking about cards, thinking about doing some combo, that's actual mental practice. And when you get a deck in your hand, the mind kicks in and that subconscious that you've been practicing actually manifests itself and you'll get a lot better, which is why when we come back to things, we suddenly understand them a lot more. So I would say, guys, just literally have fun with it. Don't get discouraged. Watch some videos, soak it all in, practice all you want, but the idea is to have fun. If you're not having fun, do something else. Cardistry is a pastime. It's not a job. It shouldn't be a requirement. It's something that you should just do because you feel like doing it. Maybe set up a little meet and greet with some friends in the area and teach them cardistry. Get them involved. Just keep at it. There's no right way, there's no wrong way to cardistry. Everything is good. So many different styles, so many different things have come from people who are just thinking outside the box and trying their own thing. All right, guys, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was somewhat informative to a lot of you, and I hope it answered a lot of questions that you guys may have had. I'm on my way to San Diego tomorrow. I'll be vlogging while I'm there, so stay tuned for that. But until then, peace.